All right, so we are going to jump in here. Thank you so much for joining us for the Housing and Dining webinar. My name is Amanda Moss. I'm going to be your kind of MC for the first part of the evening. I'm the outreach manager at MSU for our EHS, and I use the she series of pronouns. I'll have a couple other guests joining me today to go over our specific areas, as well as a few friends in the chat to be able to answer questions for Q&A as we move along. We have a couple of slides, some information to go over today. We'll get started with some housing stuff here in just a second. And then if you have a question, feel free to pop it in the Q&A. But note, we are going to answer most of them with the contents that are on the slide. It is important to note if you do ask a question and it involves highly personal information or a very specific circumstance, we may defer you to our subject matter experts in the Housing Assignments Office or in the EDIT State Office. So just know that that might be something that we do as well, depending upon your circumstance. But that being said, we'll go ahead and jump in and get started. All right, so we are very excited that you are going to be living with us this year. Congratulations on your admission. We look forward to hosting you. We have about 17,000-ish students living with us on campus every year. Those students are in 27 different residence halls sorted into 5 different neighborhoods. And it's important to note that we usually have about 10,000 first-year students, so you will not be the only ones on Google Maps on your phone trying to figure out where your classes are that first week. Plenty of other students will be in that space with you. And thank goodness, because when I was a student, we had to hold these giant maps up in front of our faces. So you will be in good company with 9,999 of your closest friends. And we look forward to talking about how you can live on campus, and let us know what kind of space is going to work for you. So as a reminder, we do have a 2-year live-on requirement. National research shows students that live on campus have higher GPAs than students that do not. They also tend to graduate more on time, if not sooner, and they're far more engaged in the campus community. We notice that it's a lot easier for students to check out, a club meeting or a registered student organization meeting that's down the hall, as opposed to having to come back off campus, find parking, use the bus system, things like that. With that, they're far more engaged in the campus community. They build a really solid social foundation, and they know where all of their academic resources are. So it's a really strong foundation that we hope to have in place by the time they choose potentially move off in their second year. So 2-year live-on requirement, keep that in mind. Right now, we're going to be talking about the incoming first year housing process specifically, what the preferences are, what that paperwork looks like online, and we will kind of get into some of the details up here in just a second. So we do know we do have a small handful of transfer students joining us. Love to hear it. Thank you so much, right? Always a Spartan, if not now, a matter of when. We do want to remind you that although not required, you can apply to live on campus by using the housing request form in the My Housing account. A lot of the preferences that we're going to be going over tonight are also going to be asked of you in that housing request form. So just kind of keep that in mind as we proceed to kind of get through that list over the majority of the summer. We'll be offering spaces and keeping you posted on the process. It is important to note that almost all the offers that are going to be going out are going to be for a single space in a double room on campus. So that's kind of important to help manage expectations. But again, all communication is going to be done through your MSU email and that My Housing account. So be sure to follow that for updates. And then another thing, just to kind of put in the background to think about as we move forward to the academic year, we do have the potential for transitional housing, just like we do every year. Transitional housing is a temporary assignment in which an extra person, a bonus roommate, if you will, gets added into the space. Again, these are temporary unless students choose to keep them. And we really don't know what that picture is going to look like until we get past, our housing deadline tomorrow, as well as we get through the summer. And so any information or changes in that process or what that looks like or how impactful it's going to be coming to you later through the summer. And again, that's going to be on your My Housing account and that MSU email that you should be checking almost every day at this point. All right, so as mentioned, moving into the to-do list. Today is May 4th. Happy May 4th. Tomorrow, everything for housing that we are going to talk about for here on this slide is going to be due tomorrow. So if you have done it already, amazing. Let's just verify and increase that confidence. If you have not yet done it, you do still have until midnight tonight to get this information in. And so make sure you kind of lock that stuff in. So what you're going to need to do before tomorrow is pay that $50 housing application fee. You're going to want to submit that $175 advance payment, which truly is an advance payment. You'll see a line item on your fall semester bill. There is a fee waiver for those with a student index aid of 0 or below, so you can go ahead and acknowledge that when you're filling out your housing contract. And that's going to be the big step, is signing your housing contract. It's all done digitally. If you are under the age of 18, you do have to tap in a parent or guardian to also sign your contract. And the system walks you through that by asking you for an email address that parent or guardian can be reached at. So you'll be able to go through and do that in the system. The important thing is sign your housing contract and pay those fees, just so that way we know to hold a place for you. The majority of the webinar tonight is actually going to be how you get to tell us what kind of space we should hold for you. And we'll get into some of those nuances here in just a moment. So one thing to kind of keep note and manage expectations in the forefront of housing is first year incoming students do not select a specific room. This is not like the housing processes of yesteryear where students could pick a building or they could pick a neighborhood. We're really asking for specific preferences because your first year on campus, we assign you using the information that you give us. Second year, you get to pick the exact room you want to live in, like you pick a seat on an airplane based off of what's available. But that's a second year situation. Your first year, we really take the information that we know that you should share with us, and then any academic requirements or living learning community requirements, and we look at that information to determine where to place you. So talking about some of the things specifically that are going to impact where we place you, we do our best to honor the list of preferences that we're about to go over, but sometimes those preferences are just not possible based off of either requirements of your academics, the setup of your roommates and their majors, or bathroom style. For example, all first year engineering students, they live in Wilson Hall, and Wilson Hall is a suite style building. So you could preference that you love a community style bathroom, but that's just not possible because there aren't any community style bathrooms in Wilson. So that's just an example of how some of our preferences work together. And then looking at the next sheet here, you'll actually be able to see the hierarchy in terms of how we do them. So things we're going to ask about is if you have a preferred roommate or roommates, your bathroom style, your dining plan preference, and then if you have any interest in being a part of any special interest communities, and we'll talk about those a little bit. In the next page, you'll see the actual ranking of these items, but those special interest communities are going to be kind of our first stop in looking at your preferences and determining assignments. Then we're going to look at your living learning communities, special interest communities, and residential colleges, and that's really because there's an academic component with that. We're going to look at those next in terms of the prioritization scale. Then we'll move into roommates, and we will go through and check to see who your roommate selection is, if they accepted that they would like to be your roommate, and that you have appropriate majors that you'll be able to live together. That's going to be really important because as it says on the screen here, and as it says in the majority of our living learning community guides, your LLC students need to live with other students of that LLC. And that's really important when you're managing roommate expectations and trying to find a roommate fit. So if you're a part of one of those communities, make sure that you are seeking out intentionally other students that are in a part of that community. And then lastly, we ask you if you have a bathroom preference style. We'll go over what those preferences are, what those styles are, as just kind of a reminder. I know many of you are already aware, but we'll go ahead and look at all of those preferences that you give us. And then about mid-July is when we'll actually go through and confirm what that information actually told us to say for you. And then we'll let you know where your room number is, your roommate, all of that kind of stuff in about mid-July. All right, so talking about some of those special interest communities that might impact your housing placement or appear in the prioritization in that hierarchy that we talked about. So first up, we have gender inclusive housing. That is a program that students can opt into. It's both for students who are choosing to be allies, as well as students who maybe identify as genderqueer or gender fluid. Basically, gender inclusive housing is a space in which students from all gender identities and all backgrounds can choose to live together without any paying attention to sex, gender, anything that's on there. So that gender inclusive housing, again, is an opt-in program, and it is something that really kind of removes gender from the equation. It removes sexuality from the equation, and it removes biological sex from the equation, all of that. So opt-in program. Additionally, we also have options, as I mentioned, in our living learning communities. And I will stress again, if you are part of the living learning community and you plan to have a roommate preference, Your roommate also needs to be a part of that living learning community in order for us to preference them. So that's really important when you're looking for roommates and making sure that that matches. As you'll notice, as many of you are a part of the living learning communities or the special interest communities, they are only available in specific areas of campus. So that is also going to limit where your options of being placed are going to be. It's important to note if your chosen roommate bathroom style don't fit the LLC program, we're not going to be able to accommodate them when we look at the preferences. There's a really great link on the website here on the Live On website for the LLC guide, and it goes over kind of the different communities, what's available if you have more questions, where you can go to, roommate, bedroom style, all of that kind of stuff is a really great guide to go ahead and look at that LLC guide to kind of answer most of your questions. And I believe we'll pop that link in the chat in just a moment. All right, another option community we have that you can opt into is substance-free housing. You might be thinking, well, most first-year students aren't 21 anyways, and drugs tend to be illegal. And while that's true and correct, the majority of rooms on campus are going to be substance-free rooms inherently. These substance-free housing spaces work in conjunction with our collegiate recovery community, so students who are in recovery or potentially battling active addiction. It's an opt-in program, and they're also for the students that are in that space. Oh my goodness. It's part of an application process. So the students would then indicate they want to be a part of that community, and we would put them in there. The difference between this community and another substance-free space on campus is that all students are in this community agree to be substance-free and live in substance-free housing regardless of their age. So that means that if a student is over 21, they're ensuring they won't have access to alcohol in their space. So that's kind of substance-free housing. But again, it is an intentional program. Most student rooms on campus are already going to be substance-free because students are under 21 and drugs are illegal, which feels weird to end a slide with that one, but we are moving forward. All right, our next consideration for special interest housing is our dietary and kosher housing. We offer options for students who want to live in closer proximity to dining facilities that are more open to what their specific needs are, as well as what their preferences are. So for example, a student that maybe has a severe allergy that's registering through RCPD can opt into dietary housing to be located in closer proximity to Thrive, our amazing allergen-friendly dining space that we'll talk about a little bit later today. Additionally, with the kosher options, it'd be living near places that have the majority of the options most of the time. It's not to say that there are only 2 designated spaces on campus that are for these accommodations. All of our dining facilities are capable in providing kosher meals as well as labeling allergens, and everyone is trained in being able to do safe serving practices as well as have an awareness in what those spaces. So even if it's just a preference, or maybe you'll be taking classes in other spaces, with the unlimited meal plans, you're able to go to any of the facilities and they'll all have both the education and means to accommodate you based off of your needs. And moving forward, Honors College. Many of you are part of the Honors College. Congratulations. With that, Honors College also impacts housing in a couple of different ways. A lot of students who are a part of the living learning community are also part of the Honors College. And what's nice is those 2 spaces really play well together because we have Honors College spacing in all of the neighborhoods. So if you happen to be an engineering student and you happen to be an Honors College student, you will be in the Honors College engineering space when we place you with your housing assignment. Additionally, if you happen to be in the Honors College and maybe you're not necessarily tied to an LLC, a lot of our Honors College students will find themselves in Campbell Hall or in other spaces throughout campus based off of some of those preferences that you gave us. So Honors College will definitely impact where your housing is going to be. And lastly, but not leastly, we also have our Resource Center for Persons with Disabilities, or better known as RCPD for short. RCPD is the home of our on-campus accommodation specialists. So if students need an accommodation to be successful and on MSU's campus, whether physically, mentally, emotionally, things like that, RCPD is really going to be a great space for them to connect with and talk through some of their options. On a personal note, RCPD, only reason I graduated, I had severe social anxiety in college. And while I was working through that, I was able to get an accommodation. So if there was a presentation due in one of my classes, instead of getting up in front of class and ruining everybody's day, including my own, I would actually be able to record my presentation online and submit it the night before. And then sometimes the professor would play it for the class. Sometimes they would just watch it and grade it in silence. But it's a really good example of an accommodation that ensures that students are still doing the same work on the same timeline, but with an accommodation while they tend to work through other things. They deal with short-term and chronic conditions. It can be, again, I mentioned students with learning differences, mental and emotional concerns, things like that. They're really a great spot for where you're going to go to get those accommodations. And sometimes those accommodations manifest themselves in impacts to housing. So it's definitely important to reach out to them if you have questions about what that looks like, or if you think they may be helpful for you. So our first option that we have here is community style, and that's when residents are split into living wings, and each living wing shares one massive community bathroom with multiple sinks, shower stalls, and all of that. I do like to pause here because they tend to look nothing like that horrible 80s locker room that most of you are picturing in your head. A lot of these are renovated spaces. Some of them have super pretty glass tile accents, and what's really nice about this, in addition to always being available, our staff actually maintains those spaces for you. So this is kind of your quintessential grab flip-flops and a shower caddy, or use the locker in some of the spaces. And your restroom is outside of your room, down the hall, things like that. The next option that we have for bathroom style is going to be suite style. And that's when 4 students are split into 2 rooms and they share a conjoining bathroom, almost like a Jack and Jill style. We provide garbage bags and toilet paper to the space, but the students themselves are responsible for kind of that maintenance cleaning schedule. And it's a great opportunity to figure out how 4 folks share one bathroom and how that schedule goes with classes. So it's kind of a nice semi-private bathroom experience. And these are, again, available in suite style spaces. And then our last option of bathroom style is quad, which is a type of suite style, and it's only available in Acres Hall. And Acres Hall, for those of you that don't know, it's the only building we have in which 4 students go into one room. As you can see from the diagram on the space here, that room is subdivided. So your sleep, study, and friendship space are kind of all separate. What's really nice about this is these are the only student rooms on campus that are guaranteed to have a living room in the space. As you can see, the bathroom is also in the space. What is also kind of nice about it is if you're anything like I was as a student and plan on bringing every article of clothing that you own with you, 1, don't. That is such a rookie mistake. 2, if you choose to ignore the loud lady on the webinar, you can, when you're in Acres, and you can notice that whole hallway that connects the spaces, those are all closet spaces. So that's kind of a really nice, spacious thing that has everything subdivided into the space. All right, so at this point, many of you are thinking about roommates, right? You have several options for roommates. I would say probably over half of our incoming class comes in with a roommate preference in mind, and we do our best to accommodate those based off of the preference hierarchy that we talked about. Some of those students meet in social media world. Some of them have meet and greets at their high schools, or maybe they meet through an alumni club or family friends. What is interesting too is if that is not something that you have access to or have had success with, MSU actually, we have our own roommate matching process that we can kind of work through with you in that student, in that My Housing portal. What's kind of cool about it is like online dating, but far less cringy and filled with super fun Spartans, right? So you'll go through and you'll answer a series of questions, and then the system will match you with a few other students at a time that you can actually communicate with through the system. So you don't have to worry about handing over your socials to somebody that you don't know, things like that. Best case scenario, you find the world's most perfect roommate match for you, right? It's sunshine and rainbows, you're in each other's wedding, you name each other's children, all of that kind of fun stuff. Worst case scenario, we all have those people in our lives that we absolutely adore, but if we lived with one another, we would destroy each other. This is a great way to find those folks because you are going to have classes and coffee dates and going to the dining hall and seeing people in your neighborhood. So it's also a really great networking tool to get to know people before moving on campus, to kind of have some of those friendships lined up before you even get there. So it's really great. That system is going to be open when our preferences window opens. So about middle of May to the middle of June. And you'll be able to go through and kind of fill out that profile and ask those questions and connect with preferred roommates in that space. Now, when you're finding roommates and making roommate groups, you are going to essentially make a roommate group in your My Housing account, and you can have up to 2 room. It can be you and another person, it can be you and 2 other folks, or it can be you and 3 other folks. Those roommate groups are going to be really important when you put them together because that's going to let us know that you want to be housed together. I do know a rookie mistake is sometimes when those roommate groups are created, they'll hit submit and then the system automatically generates kind of like an email that they're going to be together in a roommate group. Instead of just deleting that email or scrolling by, there's usually a button if you scroll down that you have to click to confirm. I know that many students get frustrated, but then if we see they weren't able to confirm that roommate match or in that roommate group, then we're unable to house them together. So it's really important that you have all your ducks in a row when you're putting those roommate groups together and ensuring that everybody not only gets the email, but also verifies that they want to be a part of that email. I'm sorry, a part of that room. Now, let's say you're kind of just wanting to throw, your chances to the wind. You're excited about meeting new people, or maybe you didn't have much luck on the roommate matching thing. Have no fear. All first-year students tend to have a roommate unless there's a medical need, and our system will actually take the preferences that you gave us and find a compatible roommate for you to match up with, and we will assign you that roommate. Again, that information is going to come out mid-July, and that's going to have your room number, and who your roommate is. For some of you, that may be confirmation. For some of you, that may be new information. And then it's time to kind of work together on, who's bringing the futon and things like that so you don't double up on move-in day. All right, moving forward. We are going to transition to my delightful friend Cheryl here, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about eating at state, what you can expect, and what those dining preferences are. Cheryl?
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. So I am Cheryl Berry, and I'm the Associate Director of Marketing and Communications for Culinary Services, so all things food on campus. So no matter where a student lives on campus, there's dining options nearby. So whether it's a residential dining hall or a retail location, um, there's always something convenient by. So whether they want a full meal, just a snack or a to-go kind of meal to take to class, they'll be able to find it. And then within each dining location, we have assorted foods that will meet dietary preferences. So if you're vegetarian or vegan, or you need gluten-free items, um, every single location will have something for you. So whether it's a packaged meal or something made from scratch, there's always an option for that. Slide, thank you. So we have three different plans to choose from, and the the silver plan is our basic plan. So every I'm going to preface this first. Every single plan gets you unlimited access to the dining halls. So they all include that. You can go in and out of the dining halls. You can get a full meal. You can grab a piece of fruit. Um, Whatever you need to do in and out, you can do that. You just swipe in and you're good to go. Um, the gold and platinum plans also have Spartan Cash and guest passes with them. So those are the difference in the levels. It has nothing to do with access. It's just the Spartan Cash that's on your ID and the guest passes. So with every plan, you have your grab and go location options. You get 12 combo exchanges, and those are meal replacements that are available at the retail locations. So you get 12 per week. And then we also have Grubhub mobile ordering pickup on campus, and that's included as well. So Spartan Cash, this kind of always throws people. Um, it's a different kind of uh, debit card because it is your MSU ID. If you think of it kind of like a preloaded debit card that you put the cash on and then it's available, that's pretty much what Spartan Cash is. So if you get the platinum plan, you're going to have $300 of Spartan Cash loaded onto your MSU ID, and you can use that at all retail locations on campus, as well as about 100 that are off campus. So it's very useful because then you're only carrying the one card. You don't have to worry about carrying any kind of credit card with you that might get lost and in the wrong hands. So it makes it very convenient. And then family and friends can make deposits into your account, and then it's available for you. And I will also say with culinary locations, if Spartan Cash is used, you also get a 15% discount. So that adds value onto your plan as well. So we have executive chefs in each neighborhood, as well as registered dietitians, two registered dietitians that serve the full campus. But our executive chefs each oversee a neighborhood. And then we have executive sous chefs and cooks within each dining location. So what's important about this is that they're highly trained, our executive chefs are. Um, and they are able to create meals specifically for you. So if you have, let's say you're celiac and you just can't find anything to eat, you can work with our executive chefs, and they will daily make you food that you can eat. So they're willing to go above and beyond to make sure that our dining is safe for you. And if you decide where you want to live and you want to reach out to the executive chef or our dietitians, feel free to contact me, and I am happy to put you in contact with them. And then we've got, I think Amanda mentioned this earlier, but Thrive is our allergen-friendly dining hall. It is free from the top 9 allergens plus gluten. And this is an award-winning location. We were actually one of the first to open up a location like this. And we were just recertified by Kitchens with Confidence. So if if you have strict guidelines for allergens, Thrive is the place that you're going to want to go. We do also have allergen friendly options in within the other dining halls. It's just they're not coded as safe, I guess, as Thrive, because Thrive is very dedicated. You can't go in and out with other food options. You can't bring peanuts in. You can't, it's very strict. So it's a very safe place to dine. Um, but you do have other options as well. And so I'm always happy to talk people through that. That's it for me. I'll turn it back over.
Thanks, Cheryl. I am going to share some information about specific housing preference steps that students are going to see when those open, and then some other information on kind of what's next. So starting with the preferences, we've seen some questions come in already in the Q&A about this. So we intend to have the preference forms go live tomorrow. I do not have a specific time, but I want to reiterate that there is no rush on these. So these will open. We've said they'd open in early May. We're pleased that it looks like we'll be opening those tomorrow. Once we feel like everything's good to go, we'll send an email to students that they're ready, but they will be open until June 12th, and students can keep going in and out of the housing preference process as many times as they would like until June 12th. There is no need to go early. There's no advantage to going early. They are not processed in order received. We take all of the preferences that are submitted, and after June 12th, our amazing housing assignments office goes ahead and makes all that magic happen with the housing hierarchy that we talked about earlier. That you'll see the thing here. So when students go into their My Housing account and they go into the application, it will first make sure that you've done your fees and your contract. So if you have not done your fees in your contract yet, do not stress. We did ask everybody to get those completed by tomorrow. But if you have not done them or you're not able to, maybe you're a recent admit and you need a little more time, you will still be able to go back in there. It will just make sure you do your fees and your contract before you can see the preferences. So that's the carrot. There's not a stick, there is a carrot that once you complete your contract and fees, you will be able to do the preferences. So this is that first screen the students will see once they get to that step. Once they've done the fees and the contract, it will show the housing preferences. It will also then have you go in and give some parent or guardian information. So we have their contact information, as well as emergency contact information and missing person contact information. And then the next screens will be specific to our honors housing and living learning communities. Students will only see these if they are part of the honors college or a living learning community. So those students will see some very specific information, first giving them a reminder of the rules of where they'll live, what roommates they can have. And then for our honor students, it will ask if you're interested in actually living in honors housing. If you are not intending to have a roommate that's honors, you will not want to select that because that will not allow you to have that non-honors roommate. And then we'll get to those special community preferences that Amanda talked about. So this is where it will talk about the allergen-free housing, the gender-inclusive housing, the substance-free housing. And then if you do not want any of those special community preferences, you will select that you want none of those. Remember that these preferences go above anything else. They go above living learning community rules, they go above roommates, they go above bathroom style. So these are the ones that are at the top of the hierarchy. And then we'll get into our room and meal preferences. So this is where you will share if you are most interested in a suite or a community style, or if you have no preference. So for those who are looking at the community style, note that your roommate group can be a max of 2 because you can only have 2 people in your room unless you go for that optional Brody triple at the discounted rate. And then if you go with suite style, you are able to make roommate groups of up to 4 people. And then you will select the dining plan that Cheryl just went over. Here's where that kosher dining preference is. This also is one of those special community preferences. It's in a different spot, but it's another preference that will supersede other requests that you have. So it will go above, if you'll have to have a roommate that also selects the same preference if you want to select a specific roommate, or this will supersede potentially bathroom style. At this part of the form, we also look at winter break. We do like to get information early on if students think they may be interested in winter break housing so we can do some more targeted communication. Our halls do close between semesters. Students do not pay for that period, but they are able to stay in their actual residence hall room for winter break for a $400 cost that also includes some dining. And then everyone will complete the roommate matching questions. You do need to complete these to be able to do any kind of roommate matching. Even if you have a specific roommate in mind, we really recommend you do this. Sometimes plans change unintentionally. We've been here long enough to see that happen. So having your roommate matching questions helps you move faster through the process. And also, like I said, if something happens and we end up having to assign you a new roommate, using your roommate matching questions will be very helpful to us. And so after students complete the roommate matching questions, they are able to go ahead and look for potential roommates. What the system will do, this is a little screen capture of that. It will start to show how high of a percent match you have with potential people. You can send messages to each other and decide if you want to live together. This example shows 53 and 25. I've seen plenty of these show 70 to 80%. So hopefully when you do roommate matching, you'll see people that fit that. But it's great to have a chance to chat a little bit. To do this in a space. While students can do it in social media, this is a place that they can do it there. And then once they have found that match, you do still have to go and do the specific request of, okay, my name is Sam and I want to live with John and I have to ask for John. John has to accept my roommate invitation. But this is a sample of what it looks like to do the roommate matching. And then after that, there's a couple more questions in there. I'll make sure to drop the housing preferences video and our webpage that shares a little bit more about this. But as I said, students can keep going in and out of the system through June 12th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. June 12th, the system will close. So do make sure to go ahead and get your responses done by then. But also do not stress. We have over a month to work through these preference processes. And then you're probably wondering what's next. I think I missed this from the last slide, but to be clear, the actual housing and roommate assignments come out in mid-July. And that is also, I don't know why I put mid-May in the slide, but in mid-July is also when we start talking more intentionally about move-in. So in mid-July is when we start asking students to pick their specific move-in time. This slide has an overview of the dates that students will be moving in. So our incoming international students, they arrive between August 21st and 23rd, and they start their orientation programming on August 24th. And then our general incoming students, our domestic incoming students arrive Tuesday, August 25th and Wednesday, August 26th. They will select a specific, I think it's either a 20-minute or 30-minute window, and that's when we ask you to actually arrive to your hall to begin the unloading process. And so we try to have everyone in by midday on August 26th, because the evening of August 26th is when the new student orientation programming begins. And then for our returning students, they can start arriving August 26th as well as August 27th, and they can also arrive really anytime after that up until classes begin. So we've shared a whole bunch of information very specific to where we are in the process. So as we said, we're finishing up asking people to get their fees and contracts done. We're starting the preference process tomorrow through June 12th. Then the Housing Assignments Office does their magic mid-June to mid-July. And then we really get everyone ready for their assignments. And I know that we get a lot of detailed questions about what their space is going to look like. So on our website, we have really helpful tools for you. We have some 360 tours of both kind of mock tour rooms as well as lived-in rooms. Students do allow us to go in to some of their spaces and get those. And then every residence hall page has a sample floor plan. Some of our halls are very standard, like some of our suite style halls. And then if you get to North neighborhood, those halls can very much vary by what the room size and layout looks like, but we do try to give you a little sense. We also have a super helpful what to bring web page that has what is allowed and what isn't allowed on campus. Our rates, the Board of Trustees just approved our 26-27 rates, and we are working very quickly to get those onto our website, and we will email everyone when those are out. As we get closer to move-in, we'll have our move-in guide. We'll start promoting our move-in webinar. So all that to be said, if you ever have a question, the website is a great place to start. And then I think the next slide is going to share our contact information for when you can't find your answer online or you have something more specific. We have amazing teams that are happy to answer your questions Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. We also have a great team on social media. Many are on this call today who are happy to answer questions through our Live On Instagram or Facebook accounts, as well as Eat at State Instagram and Facebook accounts. So we are here to support you. We're so excited for you to be on campus very soon. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Amanda, who's going to help us run some Q&A.
Absolutely. And Bethany, I'm going to give you just a break there because that was a lot of slides in a row. So Cheryl, I'm going to start over with you. It looks like there was some confusion about the Spartan Cash, if it can be added at any time. And in addition to that, I think with the charts, some folks weren't sure if that was by month, by semester, by year, and if the dining plan itself was $300. So go ahead with any of those.
Okay, so the dining plans run per semester. So every semester you'll choose what you want to maintain. If you want to continue with silver, gold, platinum. Now, if you choose silver, at any point during the semester, you can upgrade to gold or platinum. However, if you choose gold or platinum, you're unable to downgrade during the semester. So you have to wait for the semester end, and then you can change the plan. What was the other question, Amanda?
Yeah, absolutely. It was, can you add Spartan Cash at any point in time?
Yes, absolutely. Anytime throughout your career at MSU, you can use Spartan Cash, you can add it. It doesn't expire, so it's always going to be on your ID. You don't want to lose your ID, but it'll always be on your ID for you to use. And parents, grandparents, anybody, maybe they want to gift you something, they can gift you Spartan Cash.
Amazing. Absolutely. I was an out-of-state student, and that's what my family did. Instead of that, crisp $5 bill and the birthday card, it was a phone call to the Spartan Cash office, and I was able to use my ID for that. So it was nice. While I have you here still talking about the differences in the dining plan, someone did ask, can you buy guest passes as needed at any time, or are they tied to the meal plan?
the guest passes are specifically tied to the meal plan. We do have, if somebody wants to come and eat, they can pay at the door, our door rate. So we have breakfast, lunch, dinner, door rates. Children under 2 eat free. Children 2 to 9 have a reduced rate. So that's always an option. So you can always bring a guest and do it that way.
Okay. And then two things. One, where can they find those rates? And do you accept cash?
We do not accept cash. Um, you can bill it to your account, and then it has to be paid for by the time the semester starts.
Oh, I meant
Um,
for the door. If you are bringing someone and you're
oh,
here for a meal and
sorry.
come to, you don't have a guest pass, so you're trying to get them in to eat with you. Do you accept cash? And where can they find those rates?
We are cashless, so you do need to be have a credit card or some other form of payment or your Spartan Cash. The rates are listed on our website, eatatstate.com. And so you can go to public dining and find those rates for pay at the door.
Awesome, fantastic. And if you could pop that in the chat, that would be great. I'm going to transition over to Bethany here. Oh, she's already beat you to it. Amazing. All right, Bethany. So I have a couple of different questions for you, and it may have highlighted a moment where I may have misspoke. If our housing contract is not submitted by tonight, what will happen? When is it due?
And it's a great question. And Amanda, this is a different answer every year. But while we have strived to ask everybody that can to have their housing contract done by May 5th so that they can get into housing preferences as soon as they open, you're still good. You still have time. Technically, as long as you get everything completed by June 12th, including your housing contract, you are set. You just cannot access any of the housing preferences that we went over until that contract is signed. So the My Housing system will continue to show you that you still have to pay your fees or sign your contract before you can move any further forward.
Awesome. Thank you for clarifying that.
Mhm.
And I know it's a little bit of a big topic, so I do have some questions about LLCs, which I understand there are 3 residential colleges. There are over 15 different special interest communities in LLCs, so I know this can be very nuanced depending upon the group. But first off, how do students know if they're a part of an LLC?
That's a great question. We would suggest going to, and I'm happy to put it back in the chat because sometimes I know everybody can't see these, but we do have that Living Learning Community Guide that gives a little bit of that. The 2 Living Learning Communities that are automatic are engineering students are all automatically part of CORE, and College of Music students are all part of the Music LLC. And then we have our 2 residential colleges. So if you are James Madison, you are James Madison. If you've applied to Lyman Briggs, you're Lyman Briggs. So those ones are more automatic. The others are applications. So if you didn't apply, you are probably not part of an LLC, but please take advantage of checking out that guide. We're getting to that point in the year with the admissions deadline that most of the living learning communities, especially the academic-based ones, are mostly full, but it never hurts to reach out if you're still interested in one. And I know we do have some other special interest communities that I'm pretty confident are still taking some folks. So if you have an interest, as you see something that piques you, please reach out to them directly.
Great. And then I had a question that kind of was curious if gender inclusive housing is available in multiple LLCs or if that automatically, removes you from the LLC. How do those play together?
Yeah, it can depend. So gender inclusive housing is available in select floors and suite style halls. So if you're part of a living learning community in a community style hall, this will remove you from being in the same hall as your living learning community. But I do know the Housing Assignments Office does strive to put you in the gender inclusive floor as close to your living learning community as possible. And you're welcome to reach out to the Housing Assignments Office directly with more questions because this one can get a little nuanced and a little specific. So I would suggest this one would be a great one for a call or an email to HAO.
Great. Those are the subject matter experts, and they are quite good at what they do. Last LLC question for this moment. Do LLCs have different move-in times and dates than the regular student move-in?
It can depend. So most do not. Most participate in our regular move-in days on the Tuesday and Wednesday. Occasionally, we do have a living learning community that may have a specific program where they're bringing folks in early, and so they will be the ones to tell students if they are asking for their students to have an early arrival. But most of the time it's part of general move-in.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to bop over to Cheryl for a moment and ask a couple of quick questions for her. Cheryl, we had questions. Are there halal dining options available on campus?
There are. You should be able to find a halal option at every dining location, at least for lunch and dinner. We have those options available. And then we also have in our packaged items in the retail stores.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. I also saw a question in the chat. Someone had noticed and had a question what combo exchange was, just briefly. Can you give us a general overview of what that is, knowing we will go more into detail later in later webinars and emails?
It's a really easy system once you understand how it works. But basically, you get a drink, an entree, and a side. So in our retail locations, you'll start to see A's, A, B, and C, and those designate the drinks, the entrees, and the sides. So it's a really easy system to learn. And you get 12 of those every week. So if you want to take a meal back to your dorm or take it to the class with you, you're welcome to do that. And then yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Perfect. Perfect. So it's just another flexible dining option that our students can use to get meals and snacks in between when they're going places. I love that. All right. Well, you were off the hook for a moment. I'm going to go back over to Bethany and ask a few questions about roommates. So just to confirm, when does roommate matching open?
So roommate matching opens tomorrow when preferences open. This is a great segue that I forgot to mention. So if you are an ambitious student that goes in on day one, you may not see a lot of roommate matches. It will only populate as other students complete those roommate matching questions. So it's really important that people kind of start that process and get things going. You don't have to pick your roommate on day one. You can spend a little time in the system and meet some folks, but it does open tomorrow.
That's good. That's good practice too, because a lot of classes will have discussion board homework, and that's how those work as well. You have to, kind of leave something out there and then come back to it and make other comments as you go. So it's good practice. In the same area of questions for roommates, can first year students live with second year students who are already on campus?
They cannot request specific housing with other second year students. That's just kind of a process of the system that we do need roommate matching and roommate groups to go with other incoming students.
Okay, good to know. And then, so question about roommate groups of four. I know that most roommate groups of four are accommodated in Acres Hall because those are really the only spaces on campus that we can guarantee roommate groups of that size to be together. But let's say a student roommate group of four gets placed in a suite. Is there a way to kind of recognize which ones you want as roommates versus which ones you want as suite mates if you do end up in that configuration?
Yes, yes. I can't visualize it right now, but I do know that there is a way to adjust the roommate group to have specifically who you want in each room.
Amazing, amazing. Okay. And then if two students are both in the honors college, I feel like every time I read these, it's like a math problem from eighth grade all over again. If two students are both in the honors college, but they have different majors, can they room together?
This is a fun, nuanced one as well. Because if one of them is in like College of Music or College of Engineering and the other is not, then no, because that's an LLC and honors. But if they are in two honor students, let's say one is psychology and one is advertising, they would be able, and they're both honors, they would be able to match together. So the system is pretty smart. It typically does stop people if they're in an LLC and say you can only live with people in your LLC. It does sometimes, we still ask that you communicate what major you're planning because sometimes it's not perfect. But typically the system can tell that. And again, this is another one that if you're not sure and you're not finding the match working and you're wondering what it is, call our office, email our office, and they're happy to look into it.
Perfect. All right. Well, I'm going to give you a bit of a pause here and pop back over to Cheryl. Looks like we had some ads. So the question was, I heard the dining plans include places like Panda Express and Starbucks. How does that work? And what are some of those extra swipe dining locations?
Right. So we have a few different third-party um, food service options on campus. So we've got Subway, we've got Panda Express, we've got Woody's, which is a Mediterranean menu, and they have their own. They have combo exchange, so you can still use combo exchange there. They just have it a little bit different than how we have it set up. So you may not get your entree, side, and drink. And that's because their price points are different from ours. So it may be where you just get an entree and a drink without a side. They have it very clearly marked on their menu boards. So um, they're, they'll help you out and kind of explain that to you if you have questions.
Okay, cool. So it sounds like there's options at all of the places. They just might look a little different. I understand that.
Yes.
As someone who sees the line at Starbucks occasionally, I know there are lots of different options for students to use there. So that's kind of nice. Your
Yes.
next question is, I know that Spartan Cash doesn't expire. It rolls over every year. So anything that's unused, you can use the next semester or as long as you have an active student ID, correct?
Correct.
Does that also apply to combo exchanges?
That does not. So combo exchanges expire at the end of every week. So if a student uses maybe 8 of their 12 combo exchanges, um, and it's Sunday night at midnight, it's going to roll over, and the ones that weren't used fall off, and you get a whole new block of 12.
That's probably for
Does
the
that make
best
sense?
because I
Yeah.
would, between my Panda Express habit and my Starbucks habit, I think I would probably abuse that quite a bit. So it's nice that they do roll over and that way you can kind of get 12 at a time. Awesome.
And I
Well,
will say,
yeah.
well, we have found that students basically will use maybe, 8 or 9 of the 12. It's rare just because I think the preference is to go to a dining hall. You get, a really good selection of food. And so I think you'll find that you're more apt to go to the dining hall than a retail location, but having that option is probably the favorite thing of our dining plan.
I definitely agree with that sentiment. I also know that the majority of our flagship dining halls, when they were renovated, were very intentional about the number of outlets put into some of those spaces because students tend to study. Bit of a pro tip, if you're looking to meet people, bring a surge protector. And when you're studying, use that in the dining hall, and then you'll meet people who are also in need of power. So fun fact, it's an unconventional Midwestern way of saying hello. All right, we are going to pop back over to Bethany for a few more questions here. All right, Bethany, first one, kind of a standalone question. And which feels weird because it was an absolutely beautiful day today here at Michigan State. The lilacs are blooming, the windows were open, it was gorgeous. But if someone is concerned, how can my Spartan get an air conditioner in their room?
It's a great question. Yes, our residence halls are not air conditioned, and in most years, that is not a huge impact. It's a few weeks at the beginning of the year, and maybe if we're lucky, you get a little warm spring, maybe. This year, not so much. I don't think people were asking for ACs at the end of spring around here. But so for air conditioners, they have to be medically necessary. So there's two routes. If a student is already working with our Resource Center for Persons with Disabilities, that is something that they may find as an accommodation suggested for them through that process, and they will work directly with RCPD. And if the student is not working with RCPD, then we do have a process for medically necessary ACs that includes getting a doctor's note to go with that, and that process will open up. It's typically sometime in June, so we'll have that up on our website. Watch if you are somebody that's looking for that. We do have the AC webpage that you can watch for, and it will confirm when that is opened, and it will be in Students My Housing accounts.
Great. Thank you for that. And, a little bit of my own experience. I'm a bit of a high maintenance princess and I survived without air conditioning through September, which was lovely. The secret is two fans, right? One in each window, one blowing in and one blowing out, right? Making that circle of air there. So that's super helpful. All right. So talking a little bit more about living in the residence halls and some of the things that come with that. Can guests stay in the residence halls? Like, can a sibling or a friend visit and stay? Is how long? Is there a limit? What does that look like?
There is. So this is a great time to plug that we have a housing handbook terms and conditions document. It is being updated for this academic year. Every year it gets a little refreshed, and we will be once again emailing that out to everyone. When students are signing their housing contract, they are saying that they're going to agree to that year's housing handbook. So I say that because the guest policy is in the housing handbook. I'm not going to try to reiterate all the rules, but there are specific things there. The big picture is guests are allowed. We really, really ask that students communicate with each other about guests. And that's something that's actually in roommate matching, because sometimes you find that maybe your room isn't a room you want to host a lot of guests. Sometimes people are very social and want to host a lot of guests. So communication is key. Roommates should be informed of guests, but guests are allowed in the rooms.
That's helpful. Yeah, the roommate conversation is a big part of that too. Looking at, again, getting prepared for campus, are we going to send out a packing list of what items students should bring or what appliances are not allowed?
Yes, yep, we're getting that updated for this year too. We do have the current list on our What to Bring webpage that people can see now. I do expect a couple updates, a couple more specifics there of suggestions for those. And then we send out a move-in guide, usually by early August. And we're going to host a whole webinar at the beginning of August, date TBD, where just like this one, where we'll talk all things move-in and we'll get real detailed on that packing list.
Love that. That's helpful to note, because sending things home, oof, no one wants to do that. All right. In that same space, again, looking at the room, what's the bed situation when folks move in? Can you request it to be different? What does that look like? What can students expect?
Yeah, so our typical double room is set with the two beds in there. Our beds do adjust to different heights, and we typically set that to one of the lofted, which is 5 or 6 feet off the ground, and then our trundled, which I believe is about 3 feet off the ground. That is what we found over the years. It's not perfect, but it's the kind of standard. Most people like that arrangement. Our beds are adjustable. We do have some helpful videos for people who do want to go ahead and adjust those themselves at move-in, or they can work with our facilities team and we're happy to help adjust those as well. Did I cover all that I needed to in that one?
It does. It does. And I think that's a good opportunity to also kind of plug those 360 tours that we have. We have a really great setup online where you can actually do the 360 tour where you hold your phone up and kind of see the spaces that you'll be potentially living in. It's also a great way to see what the bathrooms look like because those are on there as well. We don't show those on tour. If you happen to be in Target and fall in love with the shelving unit, I recommend pulling up that 360 tour to find out where you're going to put something before it goes in the cart because nobody wants to build something, realize they don't have space for it, and then bring it back. So really important to kind of pay attention to those things and then use that as a resource. With that, talking about getting things to the halls, can you ship things? And are there limitations to what that looks like? What if families are from out of state, like to what degree can things be shipped?
Yeah, we do have an option to ship things, and we do encourage, particularly we know for our folks that are traveling from further that may not be driving in as easily to ship items ahead. We will share that date when we begin accepting items. It's important to watch for that. It's sometime in mid-August. I don't have the specific date in front of me, but that's when our halls will begin to accept packages. We do suggest if it's the things that you are not able to bring in your vehicle that you do. Our halls do every year we've broken records of how many packages arrive in August. So while our team works really hard and we staff up to try to get through processing those packages as quickly as possible, there can be a little bit of a delay potentially at move-in. We really try not to have that happen. But we would say if there's stuff that you for sure need at move-in, if you're able to bring that on your own, that's what we'd recommend. And then if you have some extra things, packages are the package process is available all year long, so it's not just tied to move-in. We'll tell you when you can start shipping the packages or when we can start accepting them, and then it will keep going from there.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Um, Looking at some of these other things, can you talk a little bit about security in the residence halls?
I can talk a little bit about it. Yeah, security and safety is really important to us. Students will find when they get to campus or before they get to campus, we're going to send a whole lot of information about safety and security practices. Some things that we have in place for students is we do have building access systems, and so this applies to when our main doors of our buildings are open. And those are select hours. And there's hours where if there's classrooms or dining, they're open to the public. And then there's times when they're only open to those with the correct ID. Most importantly, our living wings and our elevators and stairs that go specifically to living wings, those are locked 24/7 ID access only. And those only allow the students in the hall and authorized staff to be able to enter those spaces. We also have some other great things in conjunction with our Department of Police and Public Safety. We do have green light emergency phones that are visible in every living wing. So if a student needs to make a very quick contact with 911, those with a push of a button go there. We do have security cameras that are maintained through our Department of Police and Public Safety that are in those more public areas of the building. And there's a Safe MSU app that if you haven't heard about already, you'll hear plenty about it. It's going to be something that we're going to really suggest that you have downloaded. Families can have it downloaded too. It's got a lot of great resources. So that's just a touch on them. We'll talk more about it in our Move On webinar as well.
Yeah, that one tends to be a lot of details in that one for sure. Speaking of details, we have some questions about like creature comforts. What is the laundry situation? Do rooms come with mini fridges or microwaves? Can you rent either of those things?
All the great questions. So laundry is part of the housing costs. So all of our laundry machines are complimentary. They are in every hall. In most halls, they are in the basement floor. But there's a couple caveats, like in the Brody neighborhood, they're up on upper floors. So students have access to that. They just need to provide their own detergent. They are commercial washers and dryers. We have a new vendor as of this last year. It's been going well, knock on wood. So we're happy about that. We do have a lot of signage about proper use of the laundry machines, so please pay attention to that. Commercial machines are a little different than the ones at home, but the goal is less is more. Because they're complimentary, because they're included, you do not have to overstuff any machines. We definitely say that. And then fridge and microwave rentals, we do not currently have a vendor for that. We found over years that we had less and less interest in that. And so we do find more often that folks source their own. We do have an amazing surplus store and recycling center on campus. If you're able to get over there, they often do have mini fridges and microwaves that people can buy at a low cost. Otherwise, we do suggest looking at those kind of back to school time deals for those.
Okay, thank you for that. With that, I have a roommate question, so we're going to pop back for a second. I mentioned roommate groups need to make sure each person hits the confirm button to be in a group, right? A very important step. How can you verify if your roommate confirmed and everything is set?
Yes, so that is going right back into my housing, into those preference screens. So once you've completed that and started that, uh, Amanda Ross, can we go back into a couple? I'm trying to think what slide. I'll tell you when to stop. I'll find an example. Oh, right, we can stop here. This works. So on this left-hand side, you'll see right there we're at special community preferences, then room and meal, roommate matching, roommate matching. So if students go back in, they can click anywhere in those. So they can click right on roommate matching and they'll be able to see the status of their roommate group.
Fantastic. That's helpful
Oh,
information. So
yes,
that'll
right
also
there.
prevent some of those panic texting, right?
Yes, yes. Always can contact our office, but it should be available to you at all times. So if you see that someone says invited but not accepted, they need to go back in and actually hit that accept button.
Okay. So it looks like we're still having some questions about living learning communities. And I know that while we are subject matter generalists, where can folks go if they have specific questions about living learning communities and special interest communities? How do they get in contact with folks? Where can they ask those questions? Where can we direct them to?
Yeah, I'll put the link in the chat. I think it was in one of the Q&As and I realized we didn't put it back into the chat. But on our website, we do have an overview of all the current living learning communities and links that go directly to those communities and their contact information. So folks are welcome to do that. We also hosted a webinar. You'll see some familiar faces in that earlier this spring that has an overview of the living learning community. So I'm also going to drop that YouTube link here. If you're watching the recording and can't see the chat, if you go to the MSU Live On YouTube channel, look for the 2026 Residential Communities webinar, and you can see more detail where we had representatives from those communities talk about their programs.
Awesome. Thank you. No, that's definitely a great space because it gives you office numbers, who the community serves, where, where questions can be directed to, what application process is. It's also helpful going to those websites that are listed on there to see if the application process is still open, as well. So that's really important to look at. So another question that is one of my personal favorites. What's the parking situation? I guess for students or for guests, I guess.
It's a great question. We are not necessarily a commuter campus in that we do talk about that we have parking. It is not it's not the kind of parking that you drive to every class, you drive to every activity. We do have parking for students. It's not commonly for first year students. Although I will say that every year the parking office lets students know if they are able to accommodate some first year students in that. It really depends on kind of how the parking permit process goes for our students in their second year and beyond. If you are a student who is commuting, they do have a commuter lot, so that is a possibility. But for our live-on students, typically it's more second year where you start getting access to permits. And then visitor parking, the parking office. We used to have kind of one website that was all things police and parking, and they've done a great job of making parking.msu.edu that has some very detailed maps that talk about where visitor parking is, where pay-by-plate lots are, and they're also, willing to take those calls and emails if you have specific questions. And Amanda, I'll turn it back to you if you have anything else you want to add on that since you love that subject so much, but that's what I got.
No, I think knowing that we are not the type of campus that students drive to or from class is incredibly important. I usually joke that I pay $60 a month for an opportunity to find a parking spot, and I have to drive to work to do my job. And so that one's kind of fun. But in exchange, we do have a lot of really beautiful green space on campus, and with all the transportation options that we have on campus, it's really nice to be able to take advantage of the free bus system or the spin scooters. Lots of students will walk. I guess the new thing, well, not the new thing. It wasn't when I was a student because we still had CD players. But a lot of students will listen to podcasts in between classes as they're walking different places. We are a very bike-friendly campus as well. So students can use their bikes to get to places. There's places to lock them up inside some of the buildings, but outside of all of the buildings. And so that's incredibly helpful as well. That also kind of touches on how do the buses work on campus and how late do they run. Buses run from, I believe it's 6 in the morning until 2 a.m. Different routes vary depending upon what populations they serve and if they come to and from campus. And if not mentioned already, students that are on campus have free busing for the on-campus routes. So the students say if it starts with a 3, it's free. And those are the buses that students take to and from classes or to off-campus places where they they'll get dropped off and then proceed to walk to their apartment complex or whatnot off campus. So students free busing, that's incredibly helpful, and many, many, many students use it. And there's a transit app that works with that too, that they'll get more information about that in the summer that kind of helps explain how busing works. And how they can get to where they need to go. Okay, so I have one last question that I'm going to ask because some of us are very type A planners and we need to know. Are roommates going to have the same move-in time?
They do not have to, every student selects their own move-in time. And so they do not have to. And we honestly would say probably you don't want the same exact move-in time. You probably want to space it out a little bit. The rooms are not large, as you'll see from the dimensions on our Live On Residence Hall pages. So while it can be nice to have some overlap, we'd suggest giving a little space. But students get to choose what time they want to select from available options.
Awesome. That is helpful to know for planning. And again, lots more information and details will be shared about that in both the move-in webinar and their My Housing account, as well as emails. So if you're not checking your MSU email daily, I would recommend to go ahead and start that process because lots of good information comes there over the summer. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to draw your attention to the screen for the offices that are being represented tonight and the help they can offer. Live On, again, is our housing office and all things pertaining to housing. Eat at State is our dining facilities and all things pertaining to dining. They have contact information on the screen, both by phone or email. I would also recommend, if you haven't already, follow both of those accounts on Instagram. Not for likes or clout or anything, but MSU Live On does a great job of posting what real student spaces look like. And they do a fantastic job of sharing real student stories and reminding incoming students when certain things are due and when certain things are available. So a great resource there, good pictures, all of that. Eat at State, we can tell you how great the food is and we can answer questions about that, but Eat at State actually posts pictures of what the food looks like. And they're great to ask if you have questions about allergens or offerings and things like that. So that being said, I really appreciate you joining us for tonight. Again, this recording is going to be available on the Live On YouTube page within the coming days. But for the evening, I'm going to say thank you for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful year and we will see you in the fall. Go green.